Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for everyone. Today we will learn about the second module of Digital System Laboratory. There is a flip-flop. The first thing of the flip-flop is a logic circuit that is used to store one bit semi-permanently until there is a command to delete or replace the content of the stored bit. The flip-flop work based on the control of the clock signal. The simple is when the flip-flop get data from the input, the flip-flop will processing a data from a trigger from the clock. So clock will be send a clock signal to the flip-flop to processing a data. After data has processed from flip-flop, they will be through to the output of the flip-flop. And there is many type of flip-flop. The first one is set reset flip-flop. Set reset is the basic form of sequential logic circuit. Basically, the flip-flop comes from a basic NAND cell or a XNOR basic cell. There is a following the circuit image and the truth table from the set reset flip-flop. This one is XNOR flip-flop, have a truth table like this, and the second is NAND, have a truth table like this. So the differences between them is when their S and R value has the same value, like 0 0 and 1 1. So the output in XNOR, if the value have 0 0, there will be no differences between input and output. So input will be 0 0 and output will be 0 0. And in the NAND, if have a 0 value, 0 and 0, so the output will be invalid. And in the XNOR, if S and R have a 1 1 value, so the output will be invalid. Different with NAND. In NAND, if S and R have 1 1 value, there will be not change or no change in input, so output will be same as input. The second one is data flip-flop or day flip-flop. D flip-flop. D flip-flop is a flip-flop that has one data input where the operation of the flip-flop is controlled by a clock signal. The flip-flop is arranged by adding a NOT gate between the S and R. What's that mean? So the D flip-flop is from basic SR flip-flop. The differences is in D flip-flop is arranged by adding a NOT gate in SR flip-flop, like this configuration. So data flip-flop have a diagram block like this. There is one input data and one output and one complement from output, and the clock for a trigger. So the truth table is like this. The D flip-flop, if have a 0 value, the output will be 0, and if have a 1 value, so the output will be 1 2. This is a simple thing of data flip-flop. So they just throw the data from the input to the output because there is no change between input and output. The third is universal flip-flop or JK flip-flop. JK flip-flop has two inputs that affect the output. The JK flip-flop operation is the same as the SR flip-flop operation, except for the insertion or input. JK is allowed condition J equal to K equal to 1. What does that mean? It means if J and K have a same value like 0 and 0 or 1 and 1, they have a output. Different with set reset flip-flop. If set reset flip-flop have a same value like 0 0 and 1 1, there will be a invalid condition in their output. If in JK flip-flop, if J and K have a same value, there will be a output, and there will not be a invalid condition of the output. And the last of the type of flip-flop is toggle flip-flop. Toggle flip-flop has a toggle property, meaning that when the input T equal to 1 or toggle equal to 1, the output will be complement output before the active clock. Example, if T or toggle have 0 or have one value, and the output before the active clock is Q. Okay, the Q is this output before the active clock, and in this statement the output equal to complement output before the active clock. Output before the active clock is Q, and the T is equal to 1. So when the T is 1 and the output before the active clock is 0, that means complement. So there will be 1 in the value of the output of toggle flip-flop. Seems like this. If T have 1 values and output before the active clock or Q have 1 value, so the output will be complement from a Q. So there is a 0. This is simple from toggle flip-flop. Next, designing flip-flop from other flip-flops. Example, we want to design the T flip-flop from JK flip-flop. The first thing is create a T flip-flop operation table. So like this. And second one is define the mode of the operation on T flip-flop. And the third is compare with the JK flip-flop operation table with the same operating mode. So as you can see, in the T flip-flop there's a hold and toggle, same as JK flip-flop. After we see a hold and toggle in each table or two table, we can see a output, the input, the input. After that we compare those two flip-flop and make a table like this. So when the output there is command that's hold, we see that in T flip-flop the input is 0 and JK flip-flop is 0 0. So we put that 0 to the table of compare from those two flip-flop. So hold will be 0 0 0 and toggle same like before 1 1 1. So after we have a equation table or equality table, it is obtained T equal to J equal to K. So after we know that T equal to J equal to K, we make the circuit. The circuit will be like this. When the T have 0 value, so J and K will have a 0 value too, because the J and K have a same way like a T input. And the last is clock. Clock is a timer signal that will trigger the circuit to active. The clock condition that trigger the circuit are divided by 4. Namely, the first one is rising edge trigger or RET. Clock will be active when there is a transition from bit 0 to bit 1. So that's called rising from 0 to 1. Second one is falling edge trigger or FET. The clock will be active when there is a transition from bit 1 to bit 0. And the third is positive pulse trigger or PPT. The active clock state is read when it is rising or 0 to the 1, but is written in falling 1 to 0. And the negative is complement from positive. So the active clock state is read as falling 1 to 0, but written when rising 0 to 1. There is a type of clock. So we know that as a type of clock and a definition of clock. And the last is timing diagram from a clock. Actually, I want to explain this in detail, but I'm afraid that my explanation cannot be understood by you guys. So it is better for us to discuss it directly or through as a real time, so that we can directly ask and discuss what is not understand from this timing diagram. Okay guys, thank you for your attention. Hope you guys have a good health and good condition. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.